All right, so we are back. And let's see what we have going on here. All right, so check, 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 check. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Um, one more time. Oh my goodness. All right. Check, 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 check. Let's see. All right. So now you should be able to hear me. Can you hear me? Here's Johnny says that he can hear me. I think that's what the thumbs up means. I see my audio now, which I didn't see the audio bars before. So hopefully the hearing is available. So yes, once again, we are back to talk about the Detroit Lions playing just three, 1, 2, 3 outdoor games this season. Now that is a big thing. It's a big thing because when we look at Jared Goff's stats, Jared Goff inside is a top 5 quarterback. Jared Goff outside, it's not a top 5 quarterback. And it's not really the cold or whatever the case may be. It's just the wind. If Jared Goff goes to a windy place, he's going to be affected by that wind. Like Chicago. Chicago is called the Windy City for a reason. They've got a lot of wind out in Chicago. But Lambeau Field is generally cold, not really windy, but it can get windy out in Green Bay. But we don't really have to worry about that except for twice, right? So we have one game in Chicago. We have one game in Green Bay. Now, the game in Chicago obviously is in December, and I don't like that too much. Because not only will it be windy, but it will also be cold. So those are things that we have to deal with. Lambeau Field is going to be in early November, I believe. So I don't think that that's going to be too much of an issue. And then we've got San Francisco, which is late in the season. And I don't like that for other reasons. Obviously, at that point in the season, what we hope is that we are playing a team that we're going to see, like we're going to turn around and see them again in the playoffs. Now, you would hope that it's, if you want the ultimate revenge arc, you want to beat San Francisco at the end of the season, and then you want to go and beat them again. But where you want to beat them in the NFC Championship game is in Detroit. You want all roads going through Detroit. You want to be locked up with that number 1 seed, having home field advantage throughout the playoffs, all the way to the Super Bowl. That is the issue. But we are also getting some national love. We are also getting some national praise. Media outside of Detroit is starting to say things that are good about the Detroit Lions. And they're able to say these things. They're not getting cut off of television. The stream is not shutting down, and they're not having the technical difficulties that I've been having since we started the stream. And I appreciate you. Here's Johnny for sticking through it because it was an issue that we had. But shout out Matthew Broder in the chat. Appreciate you coming through, homie. And you caught me after the technical difficulties today. So basically, here's what I did with the technical difficulties. I went out this weekend. I bought an Ethernet cable. And then after buying the Ethernet cable, I changed my settings to make sure that the quality wasn't too high or whatever the case may be for the upload situation, because my internet is super fast. It's like a gigabit per second. That's download speed. Upload speed is something completely different. It's like in the 30s, right? So I did all that, changed all that around. And then for whatever reason, The audio conked out. All right, but now we are back. Everything is working. The stream is an excellent connection. All that stuff. So hopefully that is it for the not financial, but for the technical difficulties. Hopefully that is no longer. All right, but anyway, so back to what we were talking about. The national media is starting to say things about Detroit that are good, and they're starting to say it with their chest. They're not just saying, oh, yeah, they got a good thing going on over there with Detroit. They are starting to talk about Super Bowls. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you haven't heard what I'm talking about, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of taste of what I mean. Let's check this out.
Swiss Army knife that they absolutely needed there in Detroit got paid. Then you got Penei Sewell.
So RG3 is over here giving his opinion about the Detroit Lions.
Now the Lions.
All right, so let's play it back from the beginning.
Catch me outside. How about that? Doesn't apply to the Lions this year because they only played 3 games outdoors. And this is pretty much what sparked what I'm talking about today. Season. That's incredible. So everyone's asking,
3 games outdoors.
For the Lions? Can the Lions finally get over the hump and win the Super Bowl? Can they? You better believe they can. Look at it this way. Jared Goff, the man, comes over from the Rams. He's a cast out. Guess what? He establishes himself as a franchise quarterback.
Now let me show you this.
Amon-Ra St. Brown has 75 million wide receivers drafted.
Let's run that back a little bit.
From the Rams.
Let's run that back because this is funny. Watch.
This way, Jared Goff, the man, comes over from the Rams. He's a cast out. Guess what? He establishes himself as a franchise quarterback.
It'll be coming up.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That is not Amon-Ra St. Brown, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know who that was.
Dyes his hair blue. The sun god shows that he is the offensive Swiss Army knife that they absolutely needed there in Detroit.
That was not Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Then you got Penei
It was Amon-Ra St. Brown the second time, but the first time
at the line of scrimmage got paid.
No clue.
So guess what? Now the Lions have all of these dynamic playmakers on offense. They retooled their entire defense to be able to go out and compete and not just get back to where they were, but actually become better. Now, those guys that have been paid don't have to focus on the money.
I love how he just talks
they can
about the
focus
team
on
like
one
he
thing and
knows
one
something
thing
about this team.
And that's establishing and cementing their legacy in Detroit as Super Bowl champions.
A lot of
Brad
national
Holmes
media
isn't
pundits
satisfied.
don't know what they're talking
Dan
about.
Campbell
Shout out Brad
isn't
Holmes.
satisfied.
Shout out
and it
Dan
seems to
Campbell.
me like no one in that locker
But I
room
love
is
the way
satisfied
that
they
he's
know it's
talking
going to be
about his
harder to do
team
what they
as
did last year.
like
This
he
year
actually
because no one's
knows
going to be surprised
people
by
on the
them.
team
But guess what?
and the
That's why they
organization
come
and all
back
these
with a
things. So
better
big
team, a
shout
better
out
secondary, a
to
better defensive
Robert
line.
Griffin III
And
on this one.
their offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, he came back too because he believes he has unfinished business.
Right, he knows
and
what
when
he's
I look
talking
at the way
about.
that their
Ben
schedule
Johnson
plays out,
coming
it makes
back.
getting home field advantage in the playoffs that much more important for the Lions because if they only have to play outside 3 times the entire year, why would they want to have to now go outside and play in the playoffs in the freezing cold when they've been chilling in the air conditioning like a basketball team the entire season? So that is going to be a point of emphasis. They have to get off to a fast start, and I believe this is the year after you have the extreme success that the Lions can show that they are here to stay and they're not going to go
mile
back
marker,
to
glad
the
to
same
see you.
old
You
Lions
actually
of
missed all the technical problems that we had in the beginning. So you got here at a pretty good time. The time that you got here was at a better time.
Catch me outside. How about that? Doesn't apply to the Lions this year
before.
because they only play 3 games outdoors.
We saw what RG3 had to say about the Detroit Lions. We saw what he had to say about how we're only playing 3 outdoor games this season and all that stuff. That obviously is the crux of what we're talking about today. But just a big shout out to RG3 coming from the national media. But he's not from the national media per se. This is a guy who was a former NFL quarterback. This is a guy that played against the Detroit Lions. This is a guy. Did he play against the Detroit Lions? Wait a minute, because he didn't really play too much. But anyway, this is a guy that was in the NFL circles, and he understood like what the Detroit Lions represented back in 2012. They were kind of on the rise. Because then we had that 2014 season, which we broke down the Matthew Stafford inability to get the game-winning drive where he turned the ball over twice. I'm just saying, in the game-winning drive against the Dallas Cowboys, after the flag was picked up, all that stuff, he turned the ball over twice in the same drive. How does one do that? I don't know. The last turnover really didn't matter because it was like fourth and something, and he got sacked anyway, and he fumbled. But the point is, RG3 is a person that was around in the NFL when the Detroit Lions were, they're like, he was drafted in 2012 and 2014. They were in the playoffs. So he saw the Lions be good. He saw the Lions be bad. He saw the departure of Ndamukong Suh and basically the breakup of that 2014 team. So he saw all those things. But for him now to like give the proper respect, the proper props to Brad Holmes, to Dan Campbell, to the roster, to what's going on in Detroit, and to talk about the things that matter to us as Detroit fans. Like, this is someone who I wasn't following before today on Twitter, and I followed him today because he's given us the love that a lot of other people aren't gonna give us. I mean, when we had I don't know if you guys saw the Speak episode when Emmanuel Acho and Joy Taylor and Shady McCoy and James Jones were talking about the Detroit Lions and the Goff contract. Everybody pretty much gave us the love, but Emmanuel Acho was still kind of on the fence. He was sowing that narrative about how Sean McVay gave up on Jared Goff, and is he really that good? And things of that nature. Like, he was still talking about the Detroit Lions with reservations. And RG3 represents the Lions fan who has fully bought in to this regime. He's fully bought in to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and all these things. That is what RG3 is talking like. And you don't really hear that from people outside of Detroit too often. So big shout out to RG3. Appreciate all that you are talking about. Appreciate you pushing the narrative of greatness, pushing the narrative of ability, pushing the narrative of this team is ready to win a Super Bowl right now. And why are we ready to win a Super Bowl right now? Coupled with all of the things that we have got going on in this organization, with Brad Holmes being a master in the draft, with Dan Campbell being a master head coach, with the organization doing all these things. So now, excuse the noise in the back, guys. So now, we've got this favorable thing. And let's talk about this favorable thing, which is 3 outdoor games. This is something that has happened before, but it is not something that is extremely common. All right. So now, welcome back, David. Welcome back, mile marker. 1 second, guys. All right. So this is something that I was looking at. I was trying to find the exact I was trying to find the exact numbers, but I couldn't really find an exact situation. I did find that. Hold on. So anyway, as I was trying to find the exact numbers, but I couldn't really find an exact amount where who is the team that played the most indoor games in the NFL history in one season. But I did find some numbers. If we go back to 1999, the St. Louis Rams played 14. And then 2 years later, they played 14 more games. But these games included playoffs and Super Bowls. So they had two home playoff games and they had the Super Bowl in 1999. In 2001, they had two home playoff games and the Super Bowl as well. The Indianapolis Colts in 2009, they played 13 indoor games and they had two home playoff games. The St. Louis Rams in 2013 played they played 13 games on their season, nothing in the playoffs. Now, the Detroit Lions in 2016 obviously didn't play any games in the playoffs. They did play 13 games. So by my estimation, from what I have seen, and you guys can correct me if you guys have other information, if you have other numbers, but from what I have seen, the Detroit Lions playing 14 regular season inside games will be the team that has played the most regular season games inside in the history of the NFL. That is a tremendous favor by the NFL. Now, I don't think that they did it on purpose. I actually don't think that they did it on purpose. I believe that this is just how the schedule has shaken out. So then if they do what we expect them to do, then they will have 17 indoor games because they will have 3 games in the playoffs at home because we'll have home field advantage. Where's the Super Bowl supposed to be this year? That one I do not know. Does anybody know where the Super Bowl is going to be? Hope we start 7-0. David Barton, I hope we start 15-0. I hope we start 17-0. It's in New Orleans. Okay. So if they do what we expect them to do, if they do what we hope for them to do, they will have 18 playoff games or 18 dome games. I know it's unrealistic, David, but I'm just saying that's what I want. If we're talking about what we want, I'm taking the 17. I'm going 20. What is it? What would it be? 21-0? Yeah, it's going 21-0. And we don't want to be like the Patriots who went 19-0 but couldn't get to 20-0. 14-3 is very reasonable. And I think that the games that they lose are, I'm not going to say the 2 outdoor games, but the 2 teams that we're playing outside in the division, which is the Packers and the Bears. I believe that we split with them. That Bears game in week 16 could be a loss because, yes, it's outside. It's probably going to be cold. Clearly, it's going to be cold because it's Chicago in December. It might be snowing. And that team will have had an entire season to gel. So, they come to Ford Field in the first game. I think the Lions handle them. I don't know about the Packers, where we get the win there. But I feel like it gets split anyway. I think the Packers are a team where... Now, here's the thing. Did the Packers legitimately split with us last year? The Packers beat us by 7 in a game where we lost the turnover margin. What was it, 4-0 or 4-1, something of that nature. So if we don't have the fumble six, if we don't have some of the interceptions and all that stuff, it was just a bad game by Goff. I don't particularly believe that the Green Bay Packers in that game were the better team. My marker says that was on my man Goff. Yeah. So, it's a strong thunderstorm. Okay, no problem, my marker. So again, that was something that was on Goff. That was a bad game by Goff, and we lost by 7 points. The turnover margin was crazy, and we lost by 7 points. Even the Chicago game, the turnover margin wasn't good, and we still came back and we won that game, the one in Ford Field when Justin Fields was dancing. Yeah. And that's when I knew the game was over. It was over for one team or the other at that point. When he started dancing, I was like, you know, me personally, I wouldn't accept that. I wouldn't let that fly. And the Lions didn't let it fly. So again, the Packers game, again, if we take it with a grain of salt, we dominated them the first game. And then the second game, they beat us by 7 points, and we tried to give the game away. And again, I'm going to be objective, and it may just seem like me being a fan, but I'm just going to be objective in my reasoning here. If the Green Bay Packers are the team that everyone is saying that they are, with the amount of gifts that we gave them in that game where they beat us by 7 points in Detroit, shouldn't they have beaten us by at least 3 touchdowns? I mean, shouldn't they have? I feel kind of like they should have. If they're really that team, if they're that team that's being anointed as the team that's going to give us the most trouble in the NFC North. Am I wrong here? Am I off base? Like, what do you guys think about that? So again, I mean, you never really expect, and this is the thing, you never really expect to sweep the division. And David Barton, yes, you make a great point. Our defense will be much better this season. So you never really expect to sweep the division unless, and especially looking at our division, looking at how the Packers did get better, looking at how we got better, looking at how the Bears got better. We don't really know what is. So we expect for the Vikings to be bad. We expect for the Vikings to be at the bottom of the division again. But I mean, they do have a. Man, I'm not high on JJ McCarthy. I think that if Kevin O'Connell is smart enough to coach around the deficiencies of JJ McCarthy, I think that he can insulate him. I mean, we saw Michigan win a championship with JJ McCarthy being insulated. And he was carried by a strong running game and a strong defense. He wasn't asked to do a ton. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh is stupid. I think Jim Harbaugh is an excellent coach. And I think Jim Harbaugh looked at J.J. McCarthy and understood his limitations and said, let's just run the heck out of this ball. Are they going to be able to do that with their offensive line? I don't think so. So, this is why we obviously expect for the Minnesota Vikings to be on the bottom tier of this division. it remains to be seen what their defensive acquisitions will be like. Obviously, I hate that Dallas Turner went to within the division. I was concerned with him going to the Bears. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think about the Minnesota Vikings getting Dallas Turner, because I thought 8 at the Falcons or 9 at the Bears. I never saw him fall into 17. Right. Mile Marker says Harbaugh is not stupid. He's a bit of an ass, but he's not stupid. Right. So again, I never in my wildest dreams thought that Dallas Turner would be going to the Minnesota Vikings. That's just not. It just didn't make any sense to me. Like him being at 17 didn't compute in my mind. I didn't think that was a possibility. But so it remains to be seen like what their defensive acquisitions are going to be. Does Sam Darnold suck? Sam Darnold has a propensity for turnovers, but I don't think he sucks. I think when he was in San Francisco and he was filling in sometimes, he was decent. We saw him his first game of his career, and he carved us up, but that was in the Quinn Trisha era, or error, if you want to call it the Quinn Trisha error, like I like to call it. But so I don't have like Sam Darnold's not Nick Mullins. He's not gonna, he's gonna throw you picks, but is he gonna throw you 6 in 2 games? Like, is he gonna throw you 3 interceptions both of the games that you play him in? I don't know. So yeah, Marl Marker says he's legit and more experienced now. Right. So you've got that guy, and he's throwing to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, who I like to call the Sons of Minnesota, because all of their last names end in son. I don't think that's ever happened for a receiving corps to have all of their top receivers with the last name ending in son. So they're the Sons of Minnesota. Now, Justin Jefferson is holding out. What does that mean for his mental preparation? I don't think that Justin Jefferson is the kind of player that's going to go out and give lukewarm effort, especially if you don't expect to be back with the team that you're holding out for. If you're trying to get that Amon-Ra St. Brown money, and the Minnesota Vikings are just like, we're not trying to pay you that much. Okay. Now, here's the thing that I can see with Justin Jefferson getting injured and Justin Jefferson not rushing back to play for the team that doesn't want to pay him. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know who Justin Jefferson is as an NFL talent evaluator, you're not good at your job, and you should be working at the Piggly Wiggly. Everybody and their mother in the NFL on the personnel side knows who Justin Jefferson is. Everybody knows who he is, what he represents, what he brings to the table, and if you had him on your team, what he would do for you, and especially if you have a very good quarterback. Now, say what you will, I believe Kirk Cousins is a decent quarterback. I think he's actually above average. The problem with Kirk Cousins seems to have been, and he kind of dispelled this a bit in recent attempts, was that he can't play under the lights. When it's prime time, he can't play. So I would say that Kirk Cousins is an above average quarterback. I don't think he's great at anything, but I think he's very good at a lot of the things that he does. And that's who was throwing to Justin Jefferson, and that's who made Justin Jefferson Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson made Justin Jefferson. But Kirk Cousins is the one that was getting him the ball. So if he goes to Jacksonville, he would be responsible for unlocking Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence has not reached his potential. And if you are going to be Trevor Lawrence throwing the football to Justin Jefferson and you can't get it done, you're a bust. And that potential that you supposedly have is not going to be realized at all. If he goes to a what's another team that Justin Jefferson could go to? Washington, right? The Commanders just got that rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. But just like there's an opportunity for Justin Jefferson to go elsewhere if the Minnesota Vikings are not going to pay him, and he doesn't really have to play out the season, to be quite honest with you. He missed a large amount. I think, did he miss like 9 games last season? Like, he missed a lot of games with that hamstring injury. And that hamstring injury could be chronic, especially when you don't show me the money. Hey, training camp comes. Oh, my leg. And that's it. Like, my hamstring, I can't play for the rest of the season, or I'm going to be out 3 weeks here. I'm going to be out 5 weeks here. It got re-aggravated. I'm testing it before. I just can't go. I slide the medical guy a little bit of money. He goes, I don't think he's ready to go. It's deep tissue. It's a deep tissue tear. He's just not ready to go. So I can see that happening in Minnesota. I don't see Justin Jefferson being on the field and not giving maximal effort. Justin Jefferson hasn't been that guy. He gave maximal effort when he was in there with Nick Mullins, or Pick Mullins, as I like to call him. So he's always going to give the most effort. He's always going to play the hardest. He's always going to run the crispest routes. He's always going to give the effort on every single play that he's in there, whether he's being targeted or not. So that's not something that the holdout is not something that I think is going to affect him on the field. That's if he stays on the field. So when you have Sam Darnold and you're throwing to those 3 guys, we know that TJ Hockenson is not going to be available until later in the season, because obviously he tore his ACL in, didn't we? I think we had we had Minnesota, someone else, and then Minnesota again, right? So I think the games for Minnesota were very close. They were like 3 weeks, not 3 weeks apart, but a week apart or 2 weeks apart, right? So we had Minnesota, we had another game, and then we had Minnesota again. So I believe he tore his ACL. It was the first game against Minnesota. So that had to be week 14? Something like that. So, you figure if it takes a year for you to get back from a torn ACL, TJ Hockenson is pretty much going to miss this coming season. He's just not going to be available. So now you have maybe Justin Jefferson out there. I would be pretty upset as Justin Jefferson, because TJ Hockenson did recently get paid. And TJ Hockenson wasn't drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. David Barton, Addison is pretty good, but if it's Addison and no one else, what does that really get you on the offense? So this is why, I'm making a case. It's a long case. I'm making a case, excuse me, for Justin Jefferson, or for the Minnesota Vikings to be at the bottom of the division. Because I don't know, like I said, I don't know who's going to be available. Now, it's the NFL, and we never know who's going to be available, who's going to be injured. But just looking at the situation from the outside looking in, and yeah, my market, that does show you the difference, between the Lions, because you're getting paid if you got drafted and developed by this team. You're not traditionally, normally, I don't want to say traditionally because that just seems a lot longer than it is, but you're not usually going to get paid by this team unless you are a homegrown talent. They went out and they gave Carlton Davis, a nice sum of money, but they didn't give him 130 million. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown, they didn't give him 212 million like they gave Jared Goff. They didn't give. What is Penei Sewell's contract? I have to look at that. Why don't I know that? I should know that. But they didn't give him Penei Sewell money. You know what I mean? They're not going to give you Jahmyr Gibbs money. They're not going to give you Jack Campbell money, Sam Laporta money. All these people that have been hits in Brad Holmes' draft. And with Brad Holmes, the way that Brad Holmes drafts, why would you even consider? Why would you even consider going out and giving a bunch of money to someone else? Because Brad Holmes is going to come in. He's going to draft dogs. Like I said, Brad Holmes is averaging 4 contributors, whether they are starters, stars, all-stars, whatever. He's averaging 4 major contributors every draft. Now, this draft was light on picks, but if we're talking about where can you have major contributors, he's got the 2 cornerbacks that he's drafted, that one of them is expected to be a major contributor by some people right away. I don't think that Terrion Arnold is going to come in right away and be a major contributor, but you got Ennis Rakestraw in there who's going to push for playing time. You signed Amik Robertson to his deal, and then you turn around and you draft 2 cornerbacks behind him. So he's like, that is just going to be a very fierce competition. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a bloodbath, as Brad Holmes said himself, in that cornerback room. So you've got Ennis Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold, who are considered to probably be major contributors somewhere down the line. And then you've got a guy like Sione Vaki. Sione Vaki is probably going to be a major contributor from day one in special teams. Special teams is a part of the game. So if you get a major contributor on special teams, that's a major contributor. People go to Pro Bowls and get all pros and things for special teams. It happens. And then you have who could be, you have a Makai Wingo, you have a Giovanni Manu who could be developed. You've got a what's that kid's name? It's slipping my mind. The other guard that we took, Christian Mahogany, right? So you've got Christian Mahogany, who, if you look at Jonah Jackson was a major contributor, and he was drafted in the 3rd round. So if you look at Christian Mahogany, he's another guard that comes in a later round who has a pedigree to be a starter or to develop into a starter in this league. So like I said, Brad Holmes hits upon hits upon hits upon hits. David Barr said, so you're talking about, Jared Goff's contract. Team friendly. Right. Exactly. So he's, again, why are you, Brad Holmes, going, I need to overpay for this guy, or I need to overpay for that guy? Like, I would be completely confident in my ability as well if all I did was win, no matter what, so that's all Brad Holmes does in the draft is win. And then even when you take some guys, like, all right, if you're looking at a Brad Holmes draft pick that's not going to be on this team this year, probably Levi Onwuzurike. It's just because of the way that his career started out with that injury, and he just never really, he never really was able to develop any consistency. So I would say that he would probably be the one that's not on the team. But look at Broderick Martin. Broderick Martin is a completely different human from when he was drafted. Like he's like a monster right now. Like he's toned up, cut up, dropped the weight. The gut is gone. I mean, that dude like looks completely different. He went through like a Jared Verse type of transformation. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I knew this because obviously I wanted Jared Verse on his team. But Jared Verse was going into Florida State, coming out of Albany. He was 200 pounds, and he was like a tight end or something. Okay, that summer that he was going to Florida State, he put on 45, 50 pounds of muscle. Right? No, he was a tight end going to Albany. Okay, my bad. So he played at Albany as a defensive end, but he was 200 pounds. And he put on 45 to 50 pounds of muscle in one off season, right? I feel like this is kind of what Broderick Martin did. So that shows you whatever you thought, whatever your opinion of Broderick Martin was, the fact that he transformed his body and the fact that he put in that work and had that discipline to do that. I mean, this is the kind of thing that Brad Holmes saw in him. And he showed it to you. Like he came back and he transformed his body. You know, he probably asked Aleem McNeil for some pointers, and he came back into the building as a completely different human being, right? Right. So like again, if you're looking for players that didn't hit, for players that didn't pan out, I think the only one that you could definitively say was a bust was probably Levi Onwuzurike. Now, then there's the thing with Levi Onwuzurike finally getting healthy last season. What is it? 3 years where he just wasn't healthy? So he finally got healthy last season. And now he has the opportunity to possibly do something. I mean, obviously the sentiment is probably just that he's just too far behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? He didn't have the opportunity to get off to any kind of start in his career. And he may be continuing that somewhere else. You know, that's just really like what the feeling is around Levi Onwuzurike. But again, talking about the Lions and their contracts, let me show you guys one more thing. And I think you'll like this one. More, not national media. He's not national media. But more stuff coming from outside of Detroit. I don't think you can hear it.
Y'all get my blessing. Not that y'all cared anyway, but I'm going to let y'all motherfuckers know something anyway. Because this is why I respect Jared Goff. Because I've said it many times. Even when I called him a game manager, okay?
Which is not a bad thing.
It is not a bad connotation to
style
who
of play
that person is, okay? He was shipped, he was migrated to Detroit to die. Mm-hmm. Respectfully.
They threw him to the pack, came back leading it.
Came back leading the prize. You dig what I'm saying? What he's been able to do in Detroit is something that no quarterback has ever been able to do. And I say that respectfully. So, yeah, man, well-deserved.
So he's definitely worth the bag.
Yes.
He's worth the bag.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. For shit show.
All right, so this is what Cam Newton had to say, and we are gonna go ahead and end it on that note. Yep. So we're gonna go ahead and end it on that note. I've got some people coming over to look at my heater in the house. All right. So once again, appreciate you guys sticking with me. Hopefully the technical difficulties and all those things that we were having are over. I went through an extensive process to try to get this taken care of. I think once everything kicked in, right, the stream was smooth and we didn't have any issues. But as always, guys, smash the like button, share, do all those good things. And until next time, as always, peace.